Hi, my name is Dr. Scott Young with Dr. Laura Mount, and we're going to do our Audiology debate series. And this one is going to be talking about taking third parties or not taking third parties. Coming right up. Okay, so when we talk about taking third parties or not taking third parties, what we're doing in this Audiology debate series is we're talking about truth. We're talking about the response of that. But we're also talking about there is, and we mentioned this before, there isn't like an ethics versus non-ethic point, okay? There are just, these are two perspectives, and you're gonna see those perspectives playing out with that too. So Dr. Laura's taking the taking the third party route, correct? Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna let her start up and talk a little bit about, and so if you kind of define what third party is for people who don't really know it too.
So they have with third parties, what they've done with a lot of these insurance groups, instead of actually paying like $1,000 benefit towards the cost of hearing aids or $2,500, whatever it may be, they've actually contracted with these third party groups where they actually can get their hearing aids as a discount. And so instead of the patient paying you for the hearing aid device and the services, they're actually paying the company, and then the company actually pays you a fitting fee. So they actually dictate the rates that you get paid per fitting. And then you also dictates more of an unbundled model. And so you get paid a fitting fee, and then you're allowed to, and that it may include a year's service, or it may include a few follow-ups, depends on the third party plan. But then the aftercare, you have to, charge separately. But some of these third party groups actually will dictate the level of care that you're allowed to charge, or the amount that you're allowed to charge for that level of care for 30 minutes per 60 minutes. And so that's been kind of and I've been working on this for several years now, because when you're in areas that all of a sudden switch to third party and your private pay patients are now part of these third party plans, is how do you survive and how do you make it? And if you are in an area, and I, just like we've stated before, there's not a right or wrong way, and we have to survive, and we have to be in business, and like it depends on your market. It is not an option for some of these audiologists and hearing instrument specialists to not take them. I wish it was for some of these cases. In some cases it's not, and we've got to give them options to survive and be able to do it. And you can. It's a different model, and you've got to know how to do that model and be able to maximize your dollar per revenue in order to survive in this market. And I've worked really hard these past few years figuring out how to do that. I just think that people have been approaching it wrong, and you can be extremely successful taking third parties. You just have to know how to do it correctly, right, and how to carve out the time the right way so you're maximizing your revenue per dollar.
Yeah. So, I mean, on the other end of that, not taking the third party, it is a diametrically opposed. And one of the things that I will say related to that, and this is something you have to consider, is that, my big problem with the third parties is that we have manufacturers and some, secondary, again, these are the third parties. So it's a group. I want you to think about it like this. You've got the patients over here and the audiologist is over here, right? And then you should have a manufacturer here. So the manufacturer provides the hearing aids that the audiologist prescribes, okay?
Correct.
So one of the problems that's happening is manufacturers and insurance companies want a piece of our pie. And I look at that stuff and I go, what? I mean, you can't make it on your kind of thing. And the answer is they can't, but they decide to jump over here and tell us what to do. And this is the sickness of the system. And they're trying to, they think they're smarter than us. And both of these guys, they're horrible at mitigating what the patient need is. So they kind of put out some really cruddy, kind of things, and they go, and I will. Can I tell you a little story? I'm at like AAA, and that's American Academy of Audiology, and you know how booths are in those places, right? And so they have this big booth, and then there's a little carpet, so he's got a little carpet, slice out there or something like that, and he's standing there talking to me, and it's one of those really low, I don't want to say the name, but it's really, really low reimbursement rate. I mean, horrible reimbursement. And he was basically saying, if the reimbursement rates go down to like where you're only going to get like $50, we're going to fight for every last dollar that you get. And I'm looking at him like this, and I literally stepped out of this thing, like as if like there was going to be lightning coming down and knocking this guy out. Because I was just going, what the hell is that about? You know, and I'm going, you know, and you're going to give me the scraps. And of course,
Right.
you're not going to lose anything necessarily here. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I mean, I had another third-party company that actually called me up, God, 2011, they were moving out of Tulsa and they wanted me to take over their patients. And I didn't have a clue how much they had. And they started dotting my schedule at first. And I was really stupid with this thing. And I didn't know what's going on. So I was like, I was like, what, before I let them fully dot it, you know, I made them cancel those. And they called me, I was talking to them like, so what are you going to pay me to take this over? What do you mean? Like, yeah, seriously. And I was like, well, you'll get to sell them batteries. I'm like, oh my God. So a pack of 6 batteries is $6. I'm gonna make $1.50 every other third person. Oh, yippee yay. And she was like flabbergasted, like I wouldn't want to do this. And here's the thing, she's probably done that to several other practices. So I started charging her every single patient that came in the door, it was like $50. I charged this company that for every single one of them. And, you know, and I was like, I was not going to do that. And frankly, that wasn't even really effective in that way. And they put cruddy hearing aids on with horrible programming with that too. And I mean, I didn't have to do really hard work. And the patients walking out going, oh my God, I hear so much better. It's like, because the reimbursement rates really sucked with that too. So I just throw that back over to you with that too.
No, and I mean, believe me, it's just like I hate third parties. And I don't even know how they're even legal because you know we have this huge thing for years about price fixing in our industry. Well, the manufacturers just price fixed us, so I don't even know how this stuff is legal and how they. But at this point, you know, we're in a small group trying to fight a system, and we have, you know, people that are trying to survive, and they're trying to with them. And so, you know, I think you have to work the numbers backwards. You can't work it in the traditional private practice model. So what ends up happening before, you know, we kind of have, this is our typical margin. This is how many units we need per month to make our bills. And this is what we need to, but then all those dynamics started changing once a lot of these groups moved to third parties. And so I think you have to kind of look at, when you look at your bundled model, okay, and you take everything, it's like, how much is done for marketing? How much did it actually cost to get you that patient into the door? And now it's, you know, and you take a look at, I think the average was originally around $500. Now it's even like $600, $750, you know, to get that new patient in the door. So you can automatically take that amount and swipe it off your margin automatically, you know, because you've what it takes just on the marketing side of it. So I think, you know, I do, you get these people that come in to these conventions on these Facebook social media boards, you're part of the cancer, you're doing this, you can't, you know, you're ruining it for everybody. And that's not the case, is that some people, there are people that love doing third parties. They make a healthy living. They're okay. They have a very small practice, and it works for them and good for them. And the thing is, there are people that don't look at their hearing healthcare the same way that we look at our hearing healthcare. And, you know, and they do look at it as more of a commodity. They might just need a little bit of help, and they don't want to pay the full level of service. And that's fine. But they still need access to hearing, you know, as well. And so you think about it and you take just revenue per hour. If you fill in, and I'm not just talking hearing aids, it's talking build yourself up as an audiologist. You know, I'm doing Nexus evals. I know what my hourly rate for that. When I do tinnitus, you know, there's all these different things. And so you can fill and then if you look at it and you break it down per revenue per hour, you can actually be profitable on third parties if it's done correctly. But you can't treat the third party scenario the same exact way as you would a private pay patient, because the services are not the same and they don't include the same.
Oh my God, you just said something. I got to jump that one. So
please do.
And I
please
love
do.
that, because here's something. I mean, I'm getting sideways with some really freaky audiologists on this issue. And
Right.
one of the things that happened to me years and years ago is that I started getting these third parties. I didn't know that they were third parties.
Sure.
Sort of, kind of didn't know this thing. And then I used to schedule them for like an hour and a half evaluation, right? Because that's
Right.
what I would do for a private pay, person.
Correct.
Then I found out they didn't need that. I mean, they were already pre-convinced that we're going to get some help with this, and it was like, boop, boop, and boom, and it was all done. And I started learning, wait, I didn't need to spend that time, with that.
Mhm.
And so I shortened those appointments down to like 30 to 45 minutes. And
Exactly.
oh
Mhm.
my God, you thought I killed her cat. I mean, she's like almost screaming at me through this chat room kind of thing. And she goes, you're stealing from the patient in that essence, and I was like, time does not mean what you think it does. It's a billable point, and so I'm
Mhm.
losing services. And here's the point. What you don't know about this, and this is something that Dr. Laura is actually admitting in a really interesting way. So I'm going to catch her on this one. So here's the thing is that when you look at that to do a full evaluation, I don't care if it's private pay or not, takes maybe 10, 15 minutes.
Mhm.
And I'm doing everything from, and so just for you audiologists to know, SRT, MCL, UCL, air-bone, temp, reflexes, quick sends, and I mean, like every billable point you could actually do. And it doesn't take me because I've done a billion of them. And so after a bit, I mean, I can just do them in my sleep, and they're,
Mhm.
and what is this thing for that hour and a half? The rest of it
Right.
is convincing them, talking to them, and other things. So that is one area that the time doesn't equal the billable points, because what
Right.
are we billing for? We're not billing for the time, we're billing for the code of this thing, or a hearing evaluation, or tympanometry, or blah blah blah, whatever that is. And I go, time isn't that thing, so it isn't the service point. So I mean, you might want to throw in there too on that one.
I'm going to bring up another one too, because also you've heard that whole adage about, the plumber goes in, he goes in and he taps on the pipe and he gives him a bill for $1,000. He's like, what did you do? And he said, $5 for the tapping, $995 knowing where to tap,
Right.
and also too. So, and I also want to say is this brain power,
Yeah.
my experience level as an audiologist as compared to, I know what I'm capable of. I know that I can get done in a visit or two, what some people take 6 or 7,
Right.
because of my experience and what I've been in and what I've
Right.
exposed to.
Right.
So not only is that my time, but my knowing where to tap just provided extra value to that patient, because I just saved that patient 4 trips in, whereas somebody's going back and forth. So I see this a lot with my transfer care patients, whereas they've been going back and forth. They're not happy with their hearing aids. I look at their hearing tests. I see one thing and I'm like, done in one fit. We're good to go. And so it's like, there's actually added value to that.
There
So it's
is
not, time is not
massive,
always money. Exactly.
massive.
Time is
Right.
not always money there too. So we look at it and you're right. The third party patient's different. You're not going into these technology recommendations as much. You're not doing all these different things that takes up the hour and a half of patient time. The expectations are different too.
Yeah. Right.
And it's just like, so there, whereas I have a patient, this, for example, private pay patient, horrendous hearing loss, dead ear on one side, she's in a bicross, on the other. And
Simple.
it was weird. She was in a fitting. I fit her in her, waiting for hearing aids to come in, and she got fit. And then she was going out of town for 3 weeks. And I'm like, I'm not comfortable. I said, you're going to take your new hearing aids. You're going to take your loaners with you. And I said, take them with you too, because just in case. And it's like knowing, because she knows with me, because of her particular case, the moment she has an issue, she's in that day, because I know she can't function without it.
Right.
That is a different level of service where she knows that she has loaners on demand no matter what, and she can get my time no matter what, because that's the type of patient she is, and that's what she needs for that level of
And there's a
service.
private pay. Yeah.
That's a private pay. And so she gets me when she gets me on demand on this concierge level, and then extra when she goes out of town, to make sure I know that where she's at. So if I have to call an audiologist to make sure she's serviced, if something happens, because she can't be without. Whereas
Right.
you may have, some of these other patients where, like I said, we talked about last time, they may have just a little bit of a noise notch. They don't need the same type of level of service. And then I actually had those patients with noise notches too. One go out and they're like, I need a loaner tomorrow. So it's a different level,
Right.
and you have to understand because everybody perceives their hearing differently, and everybody perceives their disability differently with their hearing loss. And
Right.
that's why you can have people with a slight hearing loss that wear the hearing aids every day and think you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then you have people with a moderate flat loss that don't think they have a problem, and they don't see the same value in their hearing, and their needs are different. And I
Right.
just think that, and that's where we go back to the same comment. I treat people individually. I take every single patient and individualize them and treat theirs as an individual case.
And
And that's how I do it.
she's not cutting them off. I mean, she's not cutting
No,
that third party off.
no.
But you're talking about, I mean, one of the things that actually happens, a private pay is going to pay this, a third party is probably going to pay this, the patient's paying this. Okay. And because that they're trying to like cut into that margin thing. And here's the reality, is that we're getting paid like nothing. And so here's the problem. You have people who don't value, they don't value, and then they come in and they're trying to like think that you're being greedy for taking extra money, which becomes, I mean, it becomes a very big fight for some of those people. Would you just make that little adjustment? Well, $65, because we're gonna, that's one of the things that happens with these third parties, and they feel nickel and dimed, and it is a big problem, and you have to have a different set of instructions, saying, hey, listen, a value proposition, when this is why you're going to pay that, or whatever that might be, and these people feel, they sometimes can feel taken advantage of, and the answer is they don't have a perspective of what the private pay person does. Okay.
Right.
And where and she just said the same thing. So that's why some people will go, you know what, I'm not doing this, because it makes me feel, it makes me feel like a piece of meat, because I'm, we still have manufacturers. So you got a third party with a manufacturer who making most of the money. The manufacturer is still making the same amount of money. I mean, they actually have a differing rate that they're giving to them because there's more hearing aids going through there. But then I'm expected to like take care of all their issues, and they act like you have to like do the same private pay responses, and I'm like, hell no, I'm not going to do that.
Well, I mean, because you have to keep in mind just too, I mean, the equipment, what goes into fitting, it's not just the fitting, it's not just what we've learned experience. I mean, just the equipment alone, audiology equipment alone that we have to buy just to cover everything that we need to do is so expensive as it is. And it's just like, so that's what people don't realize, like that all goes into the fittings. It's just like when we have to buy new real ear equipment or new OAEs, or all this stuff has to get factored, it has to get paid for somehow. And that's part of being an audiologist and staying up, is that you're paying, that's what goes into it, but like I said, I'm the type of person that gets my hair cut once a year and I get it done at Supercuts because I don't care, where there's other people that go every 6 weeks and that is what they, and they pay for, and that is 100%. And that's the great thing. There are
sports
people,
clips. I mean, because they'll like give them a massage and stuff like that, and like, so yeah, I'm like, oh,
but the thing is I'm here to do what I need to do. And I'm here to get you hearing better within the means that works best for the patient. And so whatever that entails, and there's going to be options for everybody out there. Everybody views their hearing health differently.
right.
And so there are people like me that that will only go to Supercuts and pay the $25, $30 once a year because I don't care about my hair. Whereas there are people that and that they just want to get a hearing aid to help in those situations that they need help in, but they don't want to invest in it, and that's fine.
Right.
They are entitled to do what they want, and and if I want to be that provider to help them, I can be it, and so be it. But there are patients that have much different needs. I mean, not all hearing losses are created equal. We know that,
right.
And not all disabilities create equal. We know that too. So we can't, like I said, you just got to figure out what model works for each patient and then adapt the model accordingly.
And I think this, again, this is not a linear kind of response. Do you guys catch that? This is not like, okay, one way this works. Okay, so I'm in Tulsa like this, and this is the only way that I can do it
Right.
because this is what the professor said, or I'm in Tulsa because my I would be looked at badly because they don't take third party or do take third party. Like, who cares what anyone else thinks? Okay, you've got to
Right.
make that personal choice. Now, we actually here's the fascinating part. We actually do take third parties, but we
Mhm.
cordon them off to the different parts. They only get a certain portion of the schedule a week, and we
Mhm.
only give them, and you know, when that fills up, it's done. And we're only giving that small amount of appointments. And if it doesn't happen in that week, well, guess what? Go to next week, the week after, whatever it is. And I'm sorry, but I'm not going to like
That's
open my
no
schedule
different
up.
than any doctor's office, though. That's no different
Right,
because we only have so many man hours in a day, and there's
right,
only so many of us, and there's only so many, and we've got to be, and if we want to be able to serve the patients and keep our doors open, we've got to structure it to where we can survive, and that is
right,
the way it is. So you're right. I mean, sometimes if there's those patient payment, and that's what, and when I worked at a nonprofit, it's very, very similar.
right.
The wait times are much longer. I mean, it is what it is because there's a bigger need. These people, sometimes these patients wait 4 weeks to 6 weeks to get in.
Yep.
And
And
unfortunately,
it is the
because there's only
case.
so many people, that can serve them. And that is what it is at this point.
So I think to kind of, finish off this thing, have we answered that? And the answer is no. Here's what we basically said. Can you take third parties? Yes. Can you not take third parties? Yes. Can you do it? I mean, and can you take some third parties and not take the other ones? Oh yeah.
Yes.
Because some of these guys are rape and pillagers. Okay, so
Yes.
you have to kind of look at it that way. But lastly, you can cordon off portions of the schedule because you say,
Mhm.
I can't do that, because again, it is killing me. And some people hire, and I know of an audiology group here in the Tulsa area that actually got bought out, and they hired based upon the busyness of the schedule. And they
Mhm.
were doing a whole bunch of other, crazy things that were, I mean, and they were all over the charts. They would do, they were doing Ecog and OAEs
Mhm.
and cochlear implants and hearing aids and adults and kids. And I was going, what are you doing? I mean, I have no idea.
Mhm.
You can't be an expert in all those areas.
Correct.
Don't ask
Correct.
me. I mean, so someone asked me about Ecog. Don't ask me to, understand it well enough to do it. I mean, I have a basic understanding,
Correct.
but you don't want to ask me on that issue. I might have a couple thoughts on there, but that's about it. So we're talking about focus. Focus on what
Mhm.
your clinic is. Okay, focus on what happens. But when you have these lower pay kind of things, and that only does this for you,
Mhm.
cordon them off according to what you're getting paid with that too. So you have to structure it so that you don't die, because there are plenty of places, if you don't do this correctly, they will eat your lunch and kill you.
We're not, and we also have to keep in mind, we're not doing any of our patients a service if our doors are closed.
No.
And we've got to figure out, continues adapt and figure out ways to continue to adapt to the market as they change so we can continue to keep our doors open to give them the service they need. Because there's nobody that's going to be better served. Our patients are better served by us than by a
Right.
manufacturer, by a retail group, different. They're better served by us. So we've got to do what we need to do to keep our doors open. And unfortunately, we have to adapt. I mean, it is
Right.
what it unfortunately too. You know what I'm saying? But like, as these things come on, there's a lot of things that have happened in this industry I do not like. There's a lot of things I can't change right now. You can control what you can, and then you just got, and then you figure out the situation around it and work around it. And that's
Yep.
what we need to do. But at the end of the day, the most ethical thing is we got to do what we need to do to keep our doors open so we can continue to see our
Right.
patients.
And that's the key. But realize there is a trend that's coming up, and we're not even talking about this. Dr. Laura and I know this very well. There's a trend that's going to focus in the world that's happening right now to us.
Mhm.
There's a trend that's going to occur that is going to basically, those big groups are
Mhm.
going to fall away. And
Mhm.
she and I both know this, and we believe this. it's hard for most people to see, because when they see big groups, they think they have a lot of money. Well, the answer is some of them are very, very bad in what they're doing, and they're doing it very, very unethically.
Well, and I'm going to do a case in point here, because best way is you give me one manufacturer that's been successful in retail.
Yep, and not one.
Case in point, and they haven't been, and
Yep.
they've never been, and no matter, and they may have a good office here and there, but overall, manufacturers have no business being in retail. So that just goes to show you, whether it's an insurance company, third party group, or a manufacturer, the best people treating patients are not in a retail model. It is a medical model, treating
Right.
the patient as an individualized patient, not as a commodity.
Right. And I think that's the key that we have to do. And so, you know, this is not an easy decision, but you need to think through these kinds of things. And if you're not willing to think through those kind of things, maybe you're not a business owner type. Maybe you need to work for an audiologist, you know, another audiologist in that kind of way. And that's a possibility, okay? Or in a different type of model that would make more sense for you too. So I hope that helps you guys, you know, gives you some stuff. I mean, make sure you subscribe. You can leave some comments down below, but realize there's a lot of answers to this thing. Thanks so much.